right, so what we have on the agenda for tonight is we have a couple of things that we're going to do. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to put together the Thanksgiving turkey dinner presentation in PowerPoint, and for that we're going to learn basically everything that there is in chapters 2 and 3, or at least the most important things that there are in chapters 2 and 3. So that's the that is the plan for what we have on the agenda. Before we get started, are there any questions either about the plan or not really anything at all? Okie dokie. So the first thing that we want to do is I would advise you to go into your Canvas, and in the class number 2 assignment to download all of the pictures and movie that we are going to be using in our presentation. So to do that, I'm going to click on Mr. Turkey, and I am going to save him in, say, my downloads. And I will save the cooking tools, and I will save the clean the turkey, and I will save the mixed spices, and the roasting pan. And I want to also save the baste the turkey video because it's otherwise a rather large file. And so then once I've downloaded all of the pictures that I'm going to use, the first thing that we want to do is we want to actually just create a really simple basic template for what our presentation is going to end up looking like, but not how it really is going to look like it. So the end result is going to look like this. So this is what the Thanksgiving turkey is going to look like, and this is what the next slide, and the next slide, and the next slide, and so on. But to begin with, it's just going to be a blank presentation. So to create a blank presentation, we want to fire up PowerPoint, and we want to create a blank presentation. And on the blank presentation, we want to have on slide number 1, we want to have Thanksgiving turkey dinner. So on here, I'm going to say Thanksgiving turkey dinner. And the subtitle is how to cook a roasted turkey. And then your name and your email. So Mark Branham, mark.branham@sjcc.edu is me. So that's all that we want to do on slide number 1. Any questions?
Sorry, you're behind.
Okay.
Download all of them, or?
Well, you don't need to download any of them yet because you're not going to need them for a while. So the first thing you should do is create your turkey dinner slide.
Okay. Should we go to the PowerPoint?
Yes, you should go to PowerPoint,
Then
create a blank PowerPoint presentation, and the title is Thanksgiving Turkey Dinner. The subtitle is how to cook a roasted turkey, your name, and your email. The next thing that we want to do after we do that is we want to create a new slide, and we want to use the two content layout. So again, to create a new slide, you can either do Control M, you can click on the new slide, you can click on the drop-down menu with the new slide, and then click on the to content. Lots of different ways to get to it. And in the to content one, we want to have ingredients as our title. And on the left-hand side, we want to put in all of the ingredients. So we want one 12-pound, what is that, whole turkey. And then we want 3/4 cup of olive oil. And then we want 2 tablespoons garlic powder. And then 2 teaspoons dried basil. One teaspoon of ground sage. And then 1 teaspoon of salt. And 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. And 2 cups of water.
I'm sorry, Professor.
Mm-hmm.
On the first, how to cook turkey?
How to cook a roasted turkey.
Just want to write this one.
And then the ingredients are the ingredients. So again, slide number 1 has Thanksgiving turkey dinner. The subtitle is how to cook a roasted turkey, your name, your email. Slide number 2 has the ingredients, and these are the ingredients. On slide number 3, we're going to put in the layout is going to be title and content. And in fact, I believe that's going to be the case for everything else. Yeah, everything else is going to be title and content. So slide number 3 is going to be the needed equipment and tools is going to be the title. So we'll create a new slide that is title and content. And the title is needed equipment and tools. And the needed equipment and tools are the oven, measuring cups, measuring spoon, roasted pan with lid, a small bowl, a basting brush, and a cooking thermometer. And if you don't want to type them all in, you can certainly copy and paste. Because again, this is all on presentations class number 2. On slide number 4 is also title and content. And on slide number 4, it's directions step number 1. And step 1 is to preheat the oven to 325 degrees. And while the oven is preheating, then we're going to do some stuff. So we're going to clean the turkey and place it in the roasting pan with the lid while the oven's preheating. Slide number 5 is going to be direction step number 2. And direction step number 2 is that in a bowl, we're going to combine the olive oil, the garlic powder, etc.
Slide number 5, direction step number 2.
Slide number 5 is direction step number 2. Yeah, step 2.
Okay, you go to copy that back to the canvas.
Yeah, it's in Canvas. So we're in the presentations class 2. And this is on direction step number 2, which is slide number 5. One of the things you will notice is that if you type it in, so if I type in olive oil, for example, it automatically makes it go into uppercase. If I want to force it to do lowercase, I can do one of two things. I can either go back and retype it, or I can go in and when it types it in and it automatically makes it in uppercase, I can do an undo, and that would then also make it go back to lowercase. I can, well, there's lots of different things that I could do, but the point is that I want olive oil to be all in lowercase. Another way that I could do it is I could select the whole thing. So if I select this entire area, there is right here the change case. And you may recall from when we were talking about this in Microsoft Word, that change case, that you can change everything. You can say capitalize each word, toggle case, make everything uppercase, or in this case, make everything lowercase.
You should accept lowercase.
Lowercase. Yeah, I want olive oil, garlic powder, dried basil, ground sage, salt, and black pepper in lowercase. Let's see here. So that was slide number 5.
No, you have to go.
Slide number 6. Slide number 6 is direction step number 3. So slide number 6 is directions step 3. And we just want to take the basting brush and to apply mixture from step number 2 to the uncooked turkey. And then step number 4 is to pour water into the bottom of the roasting pan and then cover the pan. And then finally, we have slide number 8, which is direction step number 5. And step number 5 is to bake for at least 3 to 3.5 hours. And and I want this to be 1/2, so I'm going to retype it in. So if I retype it in 1/2, it's going to convert it into to the 1/2 symbol. And then I can move it so that it's right next to the 3 so that it looks pretty. So that it's going to bake for at least 3 to 3.5 hours. We want to use the thermometer to ensure the thickest part of the thigh is at least 180 degrees Fahrenheit, 82 degrees Celsius. Then we remove it from the oven and we allow it to stand for about 30 minutes before carving. Yeah.
Should we change the bullet points on this slide the way you did in Canvas?
No, the bullet points will automatically, they're going to actually change when we change the theme, which is going to be the next thing that we're going to do. So right at the moment, speaking of that, right at the moment, our presentation, or my presentation, is totally awesome. because it's white background with black font and the default font at that. And so we have slide 1 looks like this, and slide 2 looks like that, and slide 3 looks like that. And then we have slide 4, slide 5, slide 6, 7, 8, and then we're done. Now, if you believe that that looks awesome, you're wrong. It does not look awesome. It looks lame. So we want to make it look awesome. So to make it look awesome, the first thing that we want to do is the first step in this is to change the presentation to organic theme variant number 2. So how do I go about doing that? How do I change my theme? Design. In design, I then want to find the organic theme, which is this guy. This guy is the organic theme. But I don't really want this version of the organic theme. I want this version of the organic theme. So variant number 2. So this is variant number 1. And this over here is variant number 2. I click on a variant number 2. And now I have my Thanksgiving turkey dinner. And one of the things you'll notice is that all of the bullets have now changed to be the organic theme bullets. All right. Questions so far? Problems, issues, confusions? Okay. So if you're behind, what I want you to do is to go back to slide number 1, because this is going to be more important to fix.
You have 5 slides, yeah?
There should be 8 slides altogether. But really, the one that we want to worry about right at the moment is slide number 1, the Thanksgiving turkey dinner. Yep. And what we want to do on this is we want to insert the turkey photo, and we want to change the size to 1 inch by 1.75, and we want to place it to the left of the text. So to do this, the first thing that you need to make sure that you have is you need to have the turkey picture. So here's the turkey picture. So I've downloaded my turkey picture. So I'm going to insert pictures, and then I downloaded it, so it's in my downloads, and then turkey. And I'm going to click on insert. So there is the turkey. Now the problem with the turkey is that the turkey is currently 1.99 by 3.47. And instead, we want it to be 1.1 inch by 1.75. So up here, where it currently says 1.99, you can either type it in, or you can just use the down arrow to get it down to 1, and that should then change the width to also be 1.75. So we want the turkey to be 1 inch wide, or 1.75 inches wide rather, by 1 inch tall. The next thing that it says to do is it says place it to the left of the text. So we want it to be to the left of your name, and we want it to be lined up so that it's lined up exactly centered and to the left. So you can see my my dotted lines here. the dotted line here is indicating that it's centered with the name, and the dotted lines on the left here are saying that it's lined up to the left right here on the edge. The next thing it says to do is it says apply the bevel rectangle picture style. So the bevel rectangle picture style, these are the picture style. That's drop shadow, soft edge, simple frame. One of these is the bevel rectangle. Where is bevel rectangle? Is this one bevel rectangle? No, I forget which one bevel rectangle is.
Reflected bevel or?
Bevel rectangle, it's right there. This one is bevel rectangle. I remember now. That's right. That's why I did it, because that looks awesome.
One more page. No, 2 pages.
So again, we want it to be lined up so that it's centered with the name and left justified with the bar that's above, the separator. Now, here's the thing. On the left of it, we have the turkey, and then we have the name. So now we want to have something on the right side. So I think we should put in the turkey on the right side. So if you copy it and then paste, you will have a carbon copy of your picture, and then you can drag him over so that he is lined up at the same level as the other one. So the other one is lined up with the name and with the bar, or with the line, and so this is now lined up exactly right.
How can you copy that back?
Control C, Control V.
Excuse me, you can have 4 pages.
So again, when I drag it over, I want it to be dragged over so that I have the left turkey is over here, and the right turkey is over here, and I want it to be lined up exactly at the same position as what the other one was.
But when I did complete the review, it is not done.
I know, you have to then drag it.
Okay. Just click it. And
Just click and drag it to the right.
Just click it without Control C. You should do Control C or not.
Well, you want to copy it. So to copy the picture, you can do one of several things to duplicate the picture. One way to copy the picture is to copy and then paste. That's the easiest way to create a copy of the picture. You can also click onto it and hold down, I think it's your Option key and drag. Maybe it's the Control key and drag. It's either Option or Control. Yeah.
Also, we do Alt C and then Alt V.
Yeah.
Basically does it.
You can also, over here in the, choose the copy, which is this guy, and then choose paste, which is that guy. I mean, there are lots of different ways of copying. Once you've copied and pasted your picture, you want to drag it over to the far right side. Now, the problem with this is that we have the turkey pointing to the left, with the leg pointing to the left, and over here we have the turkey pointing to the left. So we've got the looking like this. And as I said before, I think it looks better either to have it look like this, like a V, or an inverted V. So if you want to make it an inverted V, then you would flip this guy so that the turkey is inverted. And if I wanted to do that, I would do rotate and then flip horizontal, and he would then be inverted. So I have the turkey pointing in this direction. Or the way I prefer it, although it doesn't matter, whichever one you prefer is the one I want you to do. Both are totally acceptable. I'm going to flip this guy so that he is making a V. We got, in my case, turkey left pointing to the left and turkey right pointing to the right. If you want to make turkey left pointing to the right and turkey right pointing to the left, totally fine.
On this side, we should go to which command?
And when you select the picture and rotate, you want to flip. Remember, we did this in Microsoft Word with the books. We had the books on one side pointing one way and the books on the other side pointing the other way. Same thing. Same exact thing. All right. So that is the end of slide number 1. So slide number 1 should look like this, more or less. Although with your name instead of my name and your email instead of my email. All right, slide number 2. Slide number 2, slide number 2, all I really want to do with this is I want to take half of the ingredients and put them over here. So I'm going to take the last 4 ingredients and I'm going to put them on the right-hand side. So that we have 2 sets of ingredients. Ingredients on the left and the ingredients on the right. So I took half of the ingredients that were on the left and put them on the right, because it's a 2 set what do they call it in layout? It is the 2 content layout. The left layout is 1 turkey to dried basil, and the second side is ground sage to water. Slide number 3. So slide number 3 is that I want to insert the cooking tools photo, and what it's going to look like is it's going to look like this. This is what I want it to look like. So to make it look like this, I have my ingredients and stuff on the left-hand side, and then I'm going to put the picture on the right-hand side. So to get the picture on the right-hand side, the first thing I need to do is I need to insert that picture. So insert pictures, and this is the cooking tools. So there he is. There's the cooking tools. Now, the problem with the cooking tools is that he's too small and he's not in the right spot. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to change his size to 3.5 by 3.5. So to change his picture from, he is currently at 2.08. So I want to change him to be 3.5. So up here in the size, I want to change him to be 3.5 by 3.5. And then I want to place him so that he is lined up to the right. So again, lined up with oven, but also lined up with the right. So that when we get the crosshairs, the guides are lining it up so that it's to the right and to the top of the content so that it's lined up with oven as well as the right-hand side. And again, I do that by holding down my mouse while I'm clicking and dragging it. And the artistic effect I want to apply to this is called pencil grayscale. So pencil grayscale is found in artistic effects, which is inside of adjust. And it is one of these, this one. This one is pencil grayscale. There are lots of them. Some of them are cooler than others. This one's kind of cool for abstraction. This one's kind of cool for like getting, you know, glowing edges and stuff. But the one that I'm using is the pencil grayscale. So we use the pencil grayscale. And I think that's it. Yeah, so on slide 3, we're inserting the cooking tools photo, changing the size to 3x5 by 3x5, and applying the pencil grayscale effect. Questions?
How can we remove the slide from the column?
How do you, I'm sorry?
How can we remove the slide that it's from?
What slide?
For example, I mistake slide 2 in the 5. The number is not.
Oh, you want to delete one of the slides? To delete a slide, you can select the slide and then you can press delete on your keyboard and that will delete it. And then if you didn't mean to delete it, you can undo. That would then undo it. All right, so the next thing in our presentations is that we're going to be using the clean turkey picture. And that is on slide number 4. It's like it says, insert the clean turkey photo. We want to change the size to 3 by 3.26. So I go to slide number 4, insert pictures, clean turkey. And we want to change it to 3 by 3.26, which it already is. It already is 3 by 0.26. And what we want to do is we want to put in the metal rounded rectangle. So metal rounded rectangle is one of these. Is this it? That's the bevel rectangle. Metal rounded rectangle. This guy right here is the metal rounded rectangle. And then we want to place him to the right, kind of in the same spot as the other guys. So we want to put him so that he's lined up with preheat oven and lined up to the right. So that again, when we get the guides, that it lines up. The other thing that we want to do is we want to apply the grayscale color, because this is actually not quite grayscale. It's a desaturated colored picture. So a desaturated colored picture is essentially black and white, but not really. And to make it really black and white, or to color, we can go into color and we can say that we want to I guess the third row down on the right. And on that first row. Where is it? Where is it? All the way left. All the way left. There it is, that one. Yeah. gonna say, I know it's there. All right. By the way, part of the reason that we are manipulating the pictures as much as we are is, first of all, because I want to show you how to do it. The second reason is that by doing that, we are modifying the pictures enough so that they are now our pictures and not the original owners of the picture. The classic example of this is Andy Warhol. So Andy Warhol very famously did a painting of Campbell's soup cans. And if he had only done one Campbell's soup can, that would have been a clear violation of Campbell's artistic rights. If he did two, probably would have been a violation. But he did like 50. And by doing that, it stopped being all about Campbell's soup cans and started being a discussion about commercialism and modernism and so on. And so at some point, it stopped being a violation of Campbell's rights and started being an assertion of Andy Warhol's artistic rights. Now, at what point did that happen? Well, that's why we have lawyers and judges and that kind of stuff. But it absolutely happened. Would somebody say that by manipulating this photo and altering it by putting in a beveled picture and changing its color and changing its size be enough? Maybe, maybe not. But you could certainly make an argument that it is. All right. Questions? Any questions on this? All right. So the next one that we have is we have the mixed spices photo. And what I kind of want to do is show you what it's supposed to look like because it's kind of cool how it ends up looking. So this is what it's going to look like when we're done. And so to do this, what we need to do is we need to, first of all, insert, whoops, not that. We need to, in step number 2, we need to insert our picture of the mixed spices. So the mixed spices start off life looking like this. And then what we need to do is make it 3x4, which I think it already is. And then we want to apply the bevel perspective picture style. So if I move it over to the right and have it centered, the bevel picture, bevel perspective picture style is, it is this one, the bevel perspective picture style. And then I want to make him centered and left. Although if you want to make it top and left, that's fine too. So top and left, he'd look like this. Centered and left, he'd look like that. I think both look good. I think maybe top and left looks better. I think that's what I'll do. I think I'll make it top and left, or top and right, I mean. Not left, top and right. All right, slide number 6. So here's the problem with video. There are many problems with sound and video that you need to be aware of. The first thing is that sound and video, if you download and install and embed the sound or video, it will take up more disk space. That's actually what we're going to do. We're going to insert the picture, insert the movie into this presentation. You can insert the video using, for example, YouTube. If I were doing it, don't do this. Don't do what I'm about to do. I just want to show you this. If I go on Insert and I go to Video and I say Online Video, it's going to load up and say, please wait while we load video. Once it decides that it can load it, I can then paste in my YouTube link, and it would then allow me to insert the YouTube video. The problem with it is that there are two problems. Well, three problems, really. Problem number one is that it requires you to have internet access. And if you are giving a talk, one of the things you don't usually want to do is assume that you have internet access. Because the room that you're in, the facility that you're in, may or may not have internet access. And even if it does, the internet access might go down. Or, there's just a lot of different problems with assuming that everything would work fine. If I wanted to do this using the web version, I could copy the video by putting in the from and embed code and then clicking on to insert and then waiting for a few seconds while it actually decides to load. And then once it actually decides to load, there he is, I could put him in. Now, I'm saying don't do this. And the reason I'm saying don't do this is twofold. First of all, again, there's the whole dealing with assuming that it works on the internet type stuff. The internet might go down. That's one problem. Another problem is that on the Mac, it's really hard to insert online videos. And so it's not something that often works. The third problem is that if I want to manipulate how it looks, so I want to put in like the soft edge oval, for example, and I want it to have the soft edge oval, and it looks like it's working fine. And then I go into presentation mode, and it looks like it's working fine. And then I go and I hit play. What happened? It goes square. If you use online video, you will get square. So if you want square, you're fine. If you want anything other than square, too bad. You get square. So for all of those reasons, I actually recommend instead that we actually embed the video. Now, the problem with embedding the video is that video files take up a lot of disk space. And what that means is that if you take your PowerPoint and you save it, and then you send it to your buddy to look at, when your buddy tries to load it, it's probably going to take a long time for it to load because it's going to have to download off of the interwebs and all of that kind of stuff. So if you know that you are going to be publishing this to a website or sending it as an email, then you probably want to use the online version. But if you are going to be giving the talk in person, you absolutely want to download the video. And what I would actually recommend that you do is that you make two versions. One version that is the presentation version, the one that you do when you're giving presentations, and the other version, the one that you make available on the web for people to download and install on their own or send via email or whatever. That make sense? Okay. So the other method, the method that, that we're going to do is that we're going to go on Insert, on Video, and instead of saying online video, we're going to do video on my PC. And when we do that, we're going to locate the base turkey.mp4 file. We're going to click on insert, and it's going to insert the movie. And in the movie, we want to place the movie in the middle, and I think we need to change the size in order to make it fit, because otherwise it's not going to fit. And then the other thing that we want to do is we want to apply the metal rounded rectangle picture style. So the metal rounded rectangle picture style is this guy. So that now he'll look kind of like this. And again, I want to make sure he's centered and lined up. And what's cool about doing this is that if I go into presentation mode and I hit play, it stays at the with the rounded rectangle around it. Whereas when I did the online version made it go square. But anyway, that is what I wanted to show you about that. Any questions? Does that make sense? All right, so that was slide number 6. Slide number 7 is that we want to insert the roasting pan photo. So on slide number 7, step number 4, we want to insert our picture, and we want Mr. Roasting Pan. And part of the problem with roasting pan is that you can read what it says there. It says roaster, and it's got the UPC and all that on it. So what we want to do is we want to blur it. So to blur it, we're going to go under corrections, and we're going to choose soften by 50%. So that's in picture tools, in format, in corrections. In sharpen soften, we're going to choose the far left one, which is soften 50%. And that's going to make it more blurry. If you wanted to make it even more blurry, you can go in on the adjustments, and you can adjust it even more so by clicking onto the format shape. And then in the format picture, there is in the image, which is this guy, there is picture corrections, and in here, right at the moment, it's at soften of 50%. But you can even make it more soften by like putting it at, I don't know, 100%, and then it's even more blurry. You don't have to, but that's where you would go to do it, to make it even more so. The other thing that we want to do is we want to put him down centered and at the bottom. So we want him to be centered and at the bottom. And then for slide number 8, on slide number 8, we want to insert what is known as a word art. So at this point, I want to save where I'm at. So I'm just going to do save. And I want to save this to my computer. And I want to save this as the Branham Mark Thanksgiving turkey dinner, so that I have my presentation at this point.
Thanksgiving.
Yes, Thanksgiving turkey dinner. Last name, first name, turkey dinner or Thanksgiving turkey dinner, something like that. Questions so far? All right. The next thing that we're going to do is really, really, really tricky. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to insert word art. We're going to apply can up to it. We're going to put in some arrows, and we're going to group them all together. So what I would like you to do is, if you're not yet caught up to where I'm at, I want you to stop whatever it is that you're working on and go to slide number 8. And follow along with me exactly as I am doing this. Because, like I said, this is a little bit tricky, but it's really, really, really cool. All right, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to insert word art. So to do insert word art, we want to go on insert, and then in text, we want to choose word art. And then the word art that we're going to do is one of the red ones. So I think it's this one is the one that is it this one or this one? Yeah, which one I did. Let's see here. If I open this up, I can tell which one I did. So the one that looks like that. So the one that looks like that is, so this is what we're building. This right here is what we're going to build. So to do that, that is, I believe,
The third one.
I think it's this one. And we want to just type in the word enjoy. And we want him to be like here. So that's the first thing that that we're doing. And then what we want to do is we want to use the can up word style. And the can up word art style is again found in drawing tools, format, text effects, transform, warp. So we're in the, we've chosen our word art style, which is this. In text effects, it is in transform. So text effects, transform. And in transform, there are a whole bunch of different transformations. So some of the cool ones are like this guy and the spin arounder and the go in a circle-y thing and so on. There's like fisheye and all of these different styles. But the one that we want is the can up. And can up is towards the bottom. Let's see, where is it? Is it this one? Yeah, this one. Towards the middle, I guess, is where can up is. And then in the shape fill, I'm making it, whoops, not shape fill, in the text fill, I'm making it, or text outline, was it text outline? Text outline, I'm making it red. It's text outline of red. There it is. All right, so now I've got my can up enjoyed. The next thing I want to do is I want to put in 2 arrows. And I want to put the 2 arrows pointing at the word enjoy. So to do that, I'm going to go on my home. And in the drawing tools, I'm going to pick the arrow pointing to the right. And I'm going to click. So I've got this arrow pointing to the right. And I'm going to put him so that he's pointing on to enjoy at about here. So about, an inch or so, half an inch away from where it says enjoy. Yes. It's on well, it's not a drawing tool, it's a shape.
Yeah, there's no box or anything on home for that.
It is. It's all the way towards the right. Mm-hmm. So on the Mac, that goes clipboard, slides, font, paragraph, insert. In insert, it has picture and then shapes. And inside of shapes is the arrow. So what I want is the right arrow pointing to enjoy. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to have a left arrow that's pointing at enjoy. And what you might think you do is you might think that you would go in and use insert arrow and put it in. But that would be a bad idea. And the reason it would be a bad idea is because we want the arrow pointing to the left to be the same size and same shape as the arrow pointing to the right. So the better thing to do is to duplicate this picture or this object. So how do we duplicate this object? Copy and paste. Yep. So copy and paste. And then I want to move him so that he is exactly the same distance away as the other guy. And you can see that there are all of these little guides that are indicating that this is at exactly the same spot as the other one. Now, prior to Office 2010, this was a really tricky process that you had to do. The tricky process that we used to have to do is we would have to go on view and we'd have to click on to grid lines, and then we'd have these grid lines and we'd have to decide that it was close enough on the grid line and then count how many nudges we wanted to do. So I count like 5 nudges and then I say, okay, that's perfect. And then I go to the other one and I do 5 nudges on the other side. You don't have to do any of that today because it's not necessary because it does it for you. So I get it so that it's exactly lined up with the other one. What do you suppose is the last thing I want to do to make him point to the left? Flip it. So to flip it, I go back to home and drawing tools, rotate, and then flip horizontal. I have one more thing that I want to do with this. And the one more thing that I want to do with this is that I actually don't want enjoy with the arrows to show up until we're at the end of the presentation. So to do that, I want to animate the arrows and enjoy. But by default, the arrows and enjoy are 3 separate objects. So it's easier to animate it if it's all one object. So to make it all one object, I am going to select all 3 objects by holding down my Shift key so that I have selected all 3 objects. Or another way to do it would be to click and drag a box-ish around it, and it will select those 3 objects. And once I've selected those 3 objects, I can then, in the drawing tools format, in Arrange, there's a choice called Group. And in group, I can do group. And what group does is groups these three objects together as one object. So that as far as PowerPoint is concerned now, this is one object. Questions? Okay. All right. So with that, I'm now ready to do my final stuff. So the final stuff that I want to do is, first of all, anytime I'm giving a presentation, it's a good idea to use the fade transition to transition between the slides. So I'm going to go on to transitions, and I'm going to go to fade, and I'm going to say apply to all, so that when we go from slide 1 to slide 2 to slide 3, that it fades between each one. And then the second thing is that in at least on slides 4 and 5, so slide 4 has a number of steps involved with it. And as I was saying before, you don't want your audience to skip ahead. You don't want them to be thinking about placing the turkey in the roasting pan while you're still telling them to preheat the oven. So because of this, I would argue this slide needs to be animated, because this step needs to happen after this step is done. And I want to make sure that people actually do this step before they do this step. So to do that, I need to animate it. And to animate it, I have to first select it so it'll be animated. And then on animations, I need to tell it to do the animation. And as I said last time, most of the animations are terrible and you should not use them. I'm going to use fade. Fade is the one of the good ones. And what it does is it's saying that it will do preheat oven, and then it'll do while the oven's preheating and clean turkey in place all at the same time. Now the problem with that is that it'll end up looking like this. It'll look like this, and then it will look like this, which is good, but then it'll go and show everything. And I think it would be better to have clean turkey in place on roasting pan happen after it says while the oven's preheating. So to fix that, I need to open up the animation pane. And when I open up the animation pane, I can then tell it that on clean turkey, I want clean turkey to start on click. So that now what it will do is it will do this slide like this, and then this, and then this, and then this. On slide number 5, again, I want to animate the things that need to be mixed together. So I am going to go in and I am going to say fade in. And again, by default, it's choosing them all to be the same. I don't want them to all be the same. I want them to all start on click. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Unless there may be things that I might want to combine together. You might argue that you combine together salt and black pepper. I don't know. So the way it's lined up now is that it's going to look like this. So it's going to look like this, and then we'll say in the bowl you want to combine the olive oil with the garlic powder, the dried basil, the ground sage, the salt, and then finally the black pepper. something like that. You might argue that ingredients needs to be animated as well. I would argue that ingredients is less important unless there's something specific that you want to mention about the type of turkey or the kind of salt. So if it needs to be sea salt, or it must be rock salt, or some fancy type of water, you know, then you might want to animate each of these so that you could make the point about all of the various different things. It all depends on how the talk goes. So if during the talk you're just saying there are a bunch of ingredients you need to do, here are the ingredients, then I would say you don't need to animate them. But if you are saying the ingredients used in this are a whole turkey and you need to make sure that you get a whole turkey that is not frozen and is already thawed, because otherwise you're going to run into problems, well, then I would say you do want to animate it so that it gives you time to talk about the bullet points so that people will pay attention to those bullet points and not skip ahead. It all depends on how you're going to give the talk and what the message is that you are saying. Same thing with needed equipment and tools. Needed equipment and tools, there's a lot of information there, but if it's not critical that people read it, then I'd say it's not critical for you to animate it. If it is critical, like you want to talk about that it needs to be done in a brick oven, or it needs to be done in a gas oven, or something like that, then you might need to animate the bullet points in this. Basically, anytime that you have more than 3 to 5 bullet points, so you have more than 4 or 5 bullet points, then you need to seriously think about animating the slide. And the only reason you would not animate the slide is if you're not going to differentiate between any of the bullet points. So if you're only going to say there are a bunch of tools that you need to have, then I would say you don't need to animate it. But if you're going to talk about what kind of basting brush you need to buy, or the kind of cooking thermometer, and why you need to use a digital thermometer instead of an analog thermometer, I don't know why you would, but maybe you might, then I would say you would want to animate each bullet point. It all depends on the talk. All right, on slide number 8. So slide number 8 is our little enjoy dude. And I don't want the enjoy to appear until after I'm all done talking. So I want the enjoy to be the last thing that happens. So to do that, I am going to add the fly-in animation to the grouping in step number 11. So to do that, I'm going to select my, my enjoy grouping, and I'm going to use the fly-in animation. Now, the fly-in animation by default goes straight up. So if I go into slideshow view, it goes up like that. Well, I don't want it to go up like that. I want it to fly in from the upper right. So to change it to fly in from the upper right, it's right here under effect options. And in effect options, I can say from the top right. And when I do from the top right, it now is going to come in from the top right. Now the problem is that it zooms in really fast. Shunk. That's too fast. So to make it go in slower, over here where it says duration, I'm going to change that duration to say maybe 2 seconds, 2-second duration. So that if it's at a 2-second duration, it'll take 2 seconds for it to come in and do the enjoy. And, you know, if I wanted to add another animation, because that was cool, you know, maybe I might want to make it, I don't know, something silly like swivel. So I could tell it to, oops, I want to add a new animation. So if I go in, I select it, and then I say add animation and add the swivel. So then what this is really silly. Don't really do this in real life, but this would go in and then it's going to, oh, swivel. The reason it was waiting is because it said start on click. So actually I want to say start after previous. So now that I told it to start after previous, what it'll do is it'll go in and then it'll swivel. If you want to do that, you can do that, but it's silly. Okay. We already added the fade transition to each slide. Adding slide numbers. So to add slide numbers, we just want to, on insert, we can just click on add slide numbers. And when we do that, it opens up the header and footer. And it says, great, where do you want to put the stuff? Because inserting slide numbers actually allows you to add in all sorts of things. To add in the date and time, to add in the slide number, of course. But you can also put in some other footer. And you can say, don't put it on the title slide if you want it to not appear on the title slide. So in this case, I'm just going to say insert slide number and apply to all. And now it'll have down here in the lower right-hand corner, the slide number. So on slide 1, it's got a little 1 right there. Slide 2, it'll have a little 2 right here, and so on. If I wanted it to have like the date and time, I could tell it to put in date and time. If I wanted to put in some other footer information, I could put in footer information. If I wanted, this will be on the slides. If I wanted to do something special for notes and handouts, I could put in something special for just notes and handouts. That's what the notes and handouts part is all about. And you can tell it, if you only want it to apply to this slide, then you just apply it to this slide. But if you want to apply to all, you click on to apply to all. So that when I'm all done, my presentation would look kind of like this. So here's slide 1, how to cook a roasted turkey. Slide 2 has this. Slide 3 has this. Slide 4 has this, which then goes to this and goes to this, then goes to this. Slide 5 has this, and then goes to this, 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 this. Slide 6 has the movie. And if I want to play the movie, I just need to hit play, and it'll play the movie. Has the movie at the end. And when it's done, it just fades to the end. Again, this is because I'm doing it using the insert movie. If I had done the insert, the YouTube one, then it would have had the square around it. It would have been square shaped. And then slide 7 has this. And then slide 8 does this. And then when we're all done, we have the enjoy, and that then fades to the end. That is the presentation. So a couple of things that I want to point out. Thing number 1 that I want to point out is when you are giving a presentation, the way that you get into presentation mode is one of several things. You can do it by clicking on to slideshow and then telling it to slideshow from the beginning or slide from a current slide. You can also do it by clicking onto this button down here on the lower right, or on the Mac, it is actually it's also now in the lower right. It used to be in the upper right, but it's now in the lower right as well. That's usually where I do it. Now you'll notice that right at the moment I'm on slide 8. If I want to skip to a specific slide number, and I know what slide number I want to skip to, while I'm giving the presentation, I can type in that slide number and I can press enter. So if I know that I want to skip to slide number 42, I could type 42, press enter, and it would take me to slide 42. If I want to go to the beginning, what do I want to do? What slide number is the beginning? 1. So if I type in 1 and I press enter, it takes me to the beginning. If I know that I want to go to slide 5, enter, and it'll go to the slide number 5. This is important to know anytime you're giving a presentation. If you know exactly what slide number you're at and you want to skip to that, just type in that slide number, press enter, and it'll take you to that slide number. Another important thing is that when you are giving a presentation, you can use your mouse. And when you're using your mouse, you can use your mouse as a, as a pointer to, point things out. But you can also right click. And when you right click, there actually is a pointer option. And in pointer option, there is laser pointer. If I do it on laser pointer, it becomes a laser pointer. Here's my laser pointer. If I instead do pointer options and I do pen, it's now a pen. And guess what? It works as a pen. I can put in, a smiley face. Or I can circle, specific things. I can also, if I right click and I go to pointer options and I go to highlighter, I can make it into a highlighter. So I can highlight stuff. If I right click and I go to pointer options, I can change my ink color. So by default, the highlighter is yellow, but I could change the highlighter to say purple. And now the highlighter is purple. Similarly, by default, the pen is red. But if I don't want it to be red and instead I want it to be, dark blue, it's now dark blue. I can choose eraser. What eraser does is it allows me to erase a specific ink. So if I want to erase this purple ink right here, I can go into eraser and I can click onto the purple ink and it will be erased. Also in painter options, if I want to erase everything, I could erase everything. I'm not going to for the moment because I want to show you something else about that. And arrow options. You can have it create arrows. So if I tell it to be automatic, it'll be automatic. If I go in and I say make it visible, it will make it visible and so on. The other thing is down here, I can also use this to bring up the eraser, highlighter, pen, and laser pointer. So you can also, anytime that you see this quick menu appear, you can also use that. This will change your slide to the slide sorter view. This will allow you to skip to the next slide and back. This allows you to search for something. So if I'm searching for a specific thing, I could zoom in and zoom in on that specific thingy. I can also zoom in using the keyboard and the mouse. So if I hold down the control key on my keyboard and I use the wheel on my mouse, I can wheel it in to zoom in and wheel it out to zoom out. If your mouse has a wheel. On the Mac mice now, if you have one of the, they call them, I think they're called the Magic Mouse, and the middle part of the Magic Mouse acts like the wheel. So if you just use the Mac mouse and you use the middle part, even though it's not a wheel because it's solid, it will act as if it were a wheel. So you can just use the middle part and scroll up and down with it. It's kind of cool. All right. So the other thing is that, again, if I right click, I could just do zoom in the same way. Depending on your monitor, you might have the ability to do presenter view. We don't in this case because we haven't set it up to do that. But in presenter mode, this is what it would look like. Presenter mode is actually pretty cool, and if the presenter presentation spot allows you to do it, it's awesome. But it requires you to have two inputs for the screen and for the computer. And in my case, I want what you see to be what I see, and so that's why I have it not set up this way. Because I think from a teaching point of view, it's not as good. But what the presentation mode, the presenter mode does is it shows you the time that your presentation has gone on, the current time, what the next slide is. When I go to the next slide, what the current slide is and what the next slide is going to be, if there are any notes. So it can be really useful in helping you pay attention to where you are and making sure that you're in the right spot. And if there are more than one if it's animated, you'll notice that over here it's saying this is what the next animation is going to be, so that I don't forget to talk about when the oven's preheating. And then when I click on to make it so that the oven's preheating, it tells me, oh yeah, the next animation is going to be this stuff. So this can be really useful, but again, it doesn't work in this lab because we don't have it set up to do that. Let's see, what else did I want to tell you about? All right, so if I go back into my slideshow mode, and I've got my animation, my ink markings on it. One of the things that you may have noticed is when I hit escape to escape out of it, it asked me if I wanted to keep the animations, or to keep the ink rather. You can choose to keep the ink or to get rid of the ink. If you keep the ink, then you can actually then save the ink as well. And so I can actually save, I can actually go in and save my ink in addition to having it appear in the ink tools, has what all of the ink stuff is that's on it. So I can modify the ink tools if I wanted to modify it for post presentation. I wanted to change where what was highlighted and how much was highlighted and stuff. I can go in afterwards and I can manipulate the ink tools that are on it. And I think that is everything I wanted to tell you about chapters 2 and 3 that are in the book. So basically everything that we just did is the stuff that is in the book on PowerPoint Chapter 2 and PowerPoint Chapter 3. So PowerPoint Chapter 2 talks all about formatting pictures, inserting and sizing a shape, applying effects to it, adding text, changing the font, using word art, adding speaker notes. So speaker notes, that's one thing I didn't mention. Speaker notes can be found on View, and then you can go in and one of two things, you can go into the notes page and see the speaker notes on the notes page. The other thing that you can do is if you're in normal, when you're in normal in View, you can then over here where it says show, you can tell it to show the notes. And then what the notes are used for is the notes are used to put in the script that you want to say in your presentation. So if I wanted to talk all about, today I'm going to talk all about how to make a turkey dinner. That might be what I would write in the notes. Or I might want to say, don't forget to mention about, being careful to prevent, illness, or I don't know, whatever it is that I wanted to remind myself about. Similarly, when I'm in here on the ingredients, if I wanted to remind myself to say something about the ingredients, I could put that information in here. So that is the stuff that's on Chapter 2. The stuff that's on Chapter 3 is coloring a photo, which we did. Adding artistic effects to the photo, which we did. Aligning the text, we've done that. Grouping stuff, copying slides, we've done that. Inserting and editing video clips, we've inserted video clips where you don't really want to edit them usually in PowerPoint, although you can. If you wanted to edit it, it's in playback. You can click on to trim video, and on trim video, you can tell it to trim the video. So you can tell it to trim parts of the video. And we talked about entrance, emphasis, and exit effects. That's what we did with the enjoy, was the entrance effect. And changing the themes. The thing that they're telling you also about is printing handouts. Printing handouts is literally you go under File and then go down to Print. And then when you go to Print, instead of printing the slides, you probably will want to print, instead of full slides, you usually want to print handouts. And there are different types of handouts that you would want to print. So 2 slides prints 2 slides. 3 slides prints. Anyone have a guess? 3 slides, yeah. 4 slides horizontal, does it horizontally? 4 slides vertically, does it? I know, vertically. Shocking stuff. All right. I think that's the end of the stuff that I wanted to show you about PowerPoint. Questions? What questions do people have other than why is it not working on my screen? If you're all done, let's go ahead and take a break. Otherwise, let's go ahead and finish up the exercise.